Hey everyone, it's John here from Hot Take Hockey. Welcome back to the channel. If you're new, welcome. If you're a new subscriber, hit that like button, notification bell, comment down below. Sheldon Keefe fired. What's next for the Toronto Maple Leafs? Trade, more firings, just overalls, maybe some statements to be made. I think a lot's going to happen. But I do want to talk about the potential trades that are going to happen, specifically with Mitch Marner, continuing that conversation, and just what could follow with Sheldon Keefe moving on. And I think it was overdue. Respect to Sheldon Keefe for that video, for his message, but I do think there's going to be change. Mitch Marner is that guy we talk about right now, and I'll also cite it. Nick Kypreos wrote an article about both Tavares and Marner garnering interest around the league, and more specifically that Marner maybe will get some big offers, and maybe that will entice Marner for a new opportunity. So we'll see. He's obviously got to waive the no movement clause. But I do want to dream a little bit, guys. Think about a lineup like this. You might not think this is possible, but I actually think this could be somewhat realistic. Re-signing Domi and Bertuzzi and bringing in a speedy guy like Chandler Stevenson. I think if you give Stevenson term, like I'm talking 6-7 years, he's 29 years old, that might be a lot, but it might bring the cap down, the AAV down. I think Chandler Stevenson could demand as much as $6+ million per on the open market, but as I said, you give him the years, maybe it comes down a little bit. So, I mean, that's pretty deep, right? You re-sign Robertson for cheap. You bring up Cowan for an opportunity potentially, and then that's your fourth line. So these are some trades I would look at. Maybe not specific to this, but just in terms of salary cap reasons. I saw something like this. You dump Marner to San Jose. You bring in like a first-round pick, like San Jose's top 15 first-round pick this year. Mario Ferraro, maybe a younger forward. Or you bring in Logan Couture because Couture could be placed on LTIR if he's not available to play. Open cap space for the Leafs. You go from $11 million of Marner, 2 and 2 with Yarncrow and Kampf. You're talking about almost $15 million, or over $15 million, sorry. And you only bring in Mario Ferraro, that's $3 million. Look at all that cap space, and then you could re-sign Domi and Bertuzzi, and even sign another guy in free agency. Who knows if a guy like Steven Stamkos would be willing to come home? So those are scenarios, but these would be like signings I would look at for the Leafs. You sign a defenseman like Brett Pesce. Long term, maybe that cap hit's too low, but these are the signings I would be very interested in. Again, the years are heavy, but it brings the cap number down. Also, somebody else was talking to me about this, and Marner for Cousins, sign me up. I've talked about it a couple times. If the Leafs and Sabres were willing to have a chat, I could see a return based around Dylan Cousins that could make sense for both teams, and Marner would still be close to home, right? So that's a scenario I'd want to talk about. This is also kind of a conversation on Twitter that, again, talking about Nick Kypreos, he talked about how Marner's actually garnering some maybe heavier interest. So fans were responding to that article and just saying teams may be willing to overpay for a rental. We'll see. But I also want to give a shout out to my guy Riley. He referenced that if you look at the returns for like Sam Reinhart and Alex DeBrincat, it was like a first-round pick or a second-round pick along with a younger player or a middle six guy in the case of DeBrincat, Kubalik. So if I had to compare, I don't know, if Marner was getting traded to, we're just giving an example here, the Anaheim Ducks, maybe it's not that big of a package. Maybe it's like a second-round pick, Frankie Vetrano, and maybe you get Cam Fowler or something. That's not a lot. That is not a lot. But again, talking about you're not getting a lot for a rental winger, I hope it's more than that. Of course I hope it's more than that. Dylan Cousins would be a lot better of a fit, and based on last year, Sabres fans were not happy with his performance. He signed long-term at $7.1 million per, and he put up 68 points last year, and he's 6'3", 23 years old. That would be a guy I'd be interested in if I'm a Leafs perspective there. I saw this from, this is pretty crazy. I will say, though, if Montreal was willing to either, one, retain on Josh Anderson when they have the open space, or if they were willing to take on the contracts of Kampf, Yarncrow, and throw in a bit of a sweetener, Josh Anderson, I still can't believe if that rumor is true that Ken Hughes rejected a first-round pick for Anderson. That's insane. Anderson's contract is so risky, and it shows really bad for what he just did this past year, but again, on a bad Montreal team. Josh Anderson would be a perfect fit for the Leafs are trying to do. Again, the Kampf and Yarncrow contracts would have to go the other way, and I don't think you give up much if you're Toronto. And then talking about this, shout out to Marie, shout out to Roberts and Tux. So Marie talking about you can't run it back because you're afraid to lose a Marner trade. It's not even playing it safe. It's delusional. It's insane to think a different outcome is just around the corner for this core. The window to win won't stay open forever. Guys, I've been saying this for 2-3 years. It is after the Tampa series. You guys saw I was doing a watch recording with my brother at my family house 2 years ago after the Leafs lost in the first round of Tampa, and I said, it is insane to run it back. And then we're going, woo! We won in the first round, awesome! And then they get stomped on by Florida in round 2. It's insane that they keep running it back. And this is the checklist for me as well, I would say. I mean, let Keefe go, bring in a culture change guy like a Berube, trade Mitch Marner, sign trade for a goalie to partner up with Joseph Woll because we can't rely on Woll if he's not healthy. He's obviously a great goalie. He's going to be a great goalie, but he needs to be healthy. Acquire 2 top 4 defensemen. I completely agree with that. That's why I said maybe you sign a guy like Pesce and then you get another top 4 defenseman in return for in the Marner package, whether it's a Cam Fowler or Colton Parayko or Nashville. Talk to Nashville. And then you acquire top 9 center. Yes. So Chandler Stevenson's been a good example, but you have to go after a guy that can play either the 2 or 3C interchangeable with Tavares, or you have Domi at the center and you shift Tavares to the wing because his foot speed's a question mark. And you did see Tavares driving the net a couple times in the playoffs. Maybe he's just not ready for the center matchups at this age. He can do the winger responsibilities. But this one's interesting, guys. I wanted to pull up this article from the 4th period. So go check out this article if you guys want. All right, you see it there. So the Wild apparently are listening to offers on Philip Gustafsson, goalie, and Marco Rossi. This came from Anthony DeMarco. So I could actually see a package that works really well for both teams here. This article doesn't actually reference Toronto. They reference Calgary, Philly, Washington in terms of looking for a young center like a Marco Rossi. But I could actually see a really good trade package for both teams that benefit both teams if the Leafs were to bring in Philip Gustafsson to partner up with Joseph Woll. Then you also get Marco Rossi, a younger center that's going to maybe grow with the likes of Cowan, Robertson, Nyes, Minton. So the Leafs still have their skill. They're ready to win now, but they're bringing in a younger core to support. That's what Chicago did. When Chicago won those Stanley Cups, that's what they did. They brought in the younger guys that ended up being great secondary pieces like a Brandon Saad at the time. And you look at LA, like a Tyler Toffoli and a Tanner Pearson at the time. Those teams won cups because they had the ready-to-go stars and the younger guys that come up. So maybe, just maybe, I'm throwing this out there, maybe it's a package around Rossi, Gustafsson, and then maybe you either, I would say there's got to be another piece in there because Gustafsson had a really bad year, and while Rossi's a really intriguing prospect, I think if you're Toronto, maybe you attach another piece to Marner and you go, okay, Minnesota, you take these contracts. We'll take one of your defense contracts. I don't know if Brodin's willing to waive and Spurgeon's their captain, so maybe not. But if you could look at one of those defensemen, maybe that's interesting too because Brock Faber's the #1 guy in Minnesota, and I think they might be in the free agent market for defensemen. So there's so many scenarios to talk about, but Minnesota was one of the teams. We've talked about it. Minnesota, Columbus. They were a couple of those teams that were right in there for Marner when they were trying to offer sheet him, and there was rumors to suggest that Marner actually rejected offer sheets from potentially those two teams. So Minnesota, if Marner maybe changes his mind now, Rossi, Gustafsson, plus for a package with Marner. So give me your thoughts, guys. I think there's a lot of potentials here, as I said, but the Cousins one I like. I think there's potentials with Nashville, Minnesota, Columbus. If Marner doesn't want to waive there, maybe you look at the California teams like an LA, like a San Jose, like an Anaheim, if Marner wants to build up with the team and live in Cali, which I don't think is a bad thing. But we'll see. Anyways, subscribe, like, comment, notification bell, as I said, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.